The transcript of conversations between Titan and its support ship has been revealed. Is it genuine or fake? We have been contacted by a crew member who was on board the Polar Prince when the sub collapsed. This crew member has supplied us with new information on the sub's workings and last moments, clearing up any confusion that may have existed. Thus, keep watching this video to find out the truth. These components have been definitively retrieved from the implosion that occurred on June 18th. It is unknown to us how much of the remaining material has been saved, nor do we know whether or not the acrylic viewport has been located. The aft pressure dome and other debris of unknown kind were salvaged during a second rescue effort that took place at the beginning of October. During the second procedure, this photograph of the titanium hemisphere was the sole picture shown to researchers. There is no definitive information on the amount of carbon fiber that has been collected from the broken pieces. Due to the fact that it plays such an important part in the investigation, it is reasonable to presume that the investigators have obtained a significant percentage of it at this point. Following the year 2021, the ballast weight was not used. Instead, the pipe weights were hung from the frame, and bags packed with steel shot were also suspended from the frame. This method proved to be more effective. All of the bags were released one by a rotating rod. After 24 hours, the bags would be dropped by the dissolving squibs. The weights that were being used on the landing skids were also discontinued. Titan was equipped with a homemade carbon dioxide scrubber during its first iteration. After some time, it was transformed into a commercial radial unit that was situated directly across from the oxygen regulator. As a result of the many cracking noises that the initial carbon fiber tube produced, it was discarded. According to the team member, the second one was superior and never produced any noises that could be heard. While diving, the team was exposed to a wide variety of noises from the outside world, since the ocean is a boisterous environment. There were several transcripts that were said to have been leaked and were distributed online. One of them caught the attention of people all across the internet, including on TikTok and YouTube. Most people think it is genuine, and the 19 minutes of fear it described are estimated to be accurate. On the other hand, we can now conclusively determine that this transcript is a forgery. The inquiry is still continuing, and the only people who have access to the actual transcript are the Department of Homeland Security and the investigators. But let's be real, the communication system couldn't transmit lengthy phrases using sound waves. Authentic communications must be brief, divided into smaller pieces, and transmitted one at a time using the fewest possible words. In the talk, sub and top were utilized. Also, in the fictitious version, the names were incorrectly utilized. To acknowledge a communication, the letter A was used. There was a code sheet available on the board that was used to shorten the message. There are no instances of the letters A or K in the phony transcript, nor does it include any of the codes that were included on the list. DPD-2W was the last transmission that Titan sent, according to our source. This is an example of how they abbreviated different nouns, and it signified that they lost 2 weights. The crew member also affirmed that there would never be any niceties, such as calling them gentlemen, and that there is no way that they would have been discussing their steps with the surface in such a manner. Initially, they would have taken action. To add insult to injury, the phony transcript has timestamps that are all incorrect by a total of 1.5 hours. The sub started its dive at 9:30 a.m., the local time for Titanic. This is something that can only be known by someone who was there at the time. According to the information provided by our source, James Cameron was somewhat right regarding the last minutes. He was correct in his assertion that Titan's last message was to dump weights, and it is accurate that the support ship lost tracking and contact at the same moment. On the other hand, Cameron's assumption that the decreasing weights indicated an emergency seemed to be premature. They were on descent, they were a couple hundred meters above the seafloor, and they dropped their weights. Now, the only way for the ship to know that they had dropped their ascent weights, which would be an emergency abort, is if they had called that in that they were ascending. So I believe now that they had some warning that they heard some acoustic signature of the hull beginning to delaminate. An investigation will hopefully eventually show what did happen, because we all need to know. To slow the drop and land gently with just a little touch from the propellers, it was usual practice to release the initial ballast around 400 meters from the bottom of the vessel. In order to achieve neutral buoyancy, it was necessary to drop 4 or 5 bags, and they had already dropped half of them. According to the most recent depth data coming from the support ship, the submarine was continuing to make its way below. Should they have been ascending in any way, it would have been observable on the monitoring system, which also tracked the object's depth. Furthermore, the Polar Prince did not get any notification of an emergency. As far as we know, the released transcript has its believers. Appeal might be found in the exciting narrative. We are interested in reading the comments because we feel that everyone has the right to believe anything they desire. Nevertheless, we take solace in the fact that the crew was mostly oblivious of any impending catastrophe before it occurred. Although we have not been able to locate any time frame for the inquiry, we can establish that investigators have been conducting interviews with the crew. Additionally, we find it intriguing that oceangate employees, although losing their jobs, have decided not to remark critically on Stockton Rush or the firm. This has the potential to imply that he was loved and even revered by the employees, or it might be that they have non-disclosure agreements in place. Regarding Reddit, other people discussed a post made on Facebook by Park Stevenson, an explorer of the Titanic. According to the report, Park Stevenson has collaborated with James Cameron on initiatives relating to the Titanic in the past. In his Facebook post, Stevenson referred to the purported transcript as unverified and said it was most likely nothing more than a cruel and cynical fantasy. According to Stevenson, "I admit that I was at first fooled by the scenario described in this log because it seemed to fit what little we know and suspect." He also stated, "After the initial emotion passed and I took time to study the text more carefully, however, I could start to see certain incongruities. Therefore, this post by Stevenson takes the investigation in a different direction, resulting in a complete transformation of everything. Please let us know in the comments section below whether you believe the transcript to be true or fabricated, as well as the grounds that convince you of this opinion. And that wraps things up. We appreciate you watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
At some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is a risk-reward question. I said, I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules.